What's going on, guys? Hey, we've got an exciting video. This is another Cappy video, Cappy Army. Go check his channel out, man. He's the GOAT. This is a strategic overview breakdown with combat footage of the Battle of Avdiivka, I believe, or one of the major battles of Avdiivka. We've watched multiple videos about Avdiivka as far as combat footage. I think it is Avdiivka, not Andriivka, but it was gnarly, man. This was a really significant part of the war. Really, there was a lot of both Ukrainian and Russian assets thrown into this. So this is going to be cool. Like I said, please check out Cappy's channel. Also, please like, share, subscribe to this channel, Different Breed. Every single like and share is un uh I don't know how the word to use, but it's extremely appreciated because it helps push these videos out. And the more people we can get watching this stuff, the better, man. I know this is a smaller channel. We're not going to change the world necessarily, but hey, if we can get even one new person that is now focused on what's happening here in Ukraine, to me, that's a W. So, hey, we've got t-shirts, anti-Putin social club t-shirts, and jump in the Discord if you're not already. We've got all our uncensored footage over there for our members, and a ton of other asset or resources for regarding Ukraine, all kinds of stuff. Check it out, link in description. Let's go, guys.
How do you stop your position from being overrun against a numerically superior enemy that outnumbers you 10 to 1?
Drones.
That's what Ukraine's 47th Mechanized Brigade soldiers were tasked with on this mission to defend Avdiivka. This was an extremely dangerous mission for Ukrainian troops at a time when Russia still had huge reserves of heavy armored tanks, while Western vehicles were only just starting to arrive. The infantry of the 47th have to face down a massive armored assault head on against them. So today, we've added to the raw combat footage with map animation.
I want to show you guys something real quick just because this is such a good visual aid.
47th have to face down a massive armored assault head on against them. So today,
Okay, so when I was in Kupiansk, this was March of 2023. We were in a trench line similar to one like this, and instead of like an actual full-on trench, though, it was more like little dugouts, like basically ranger graves kind of cut out, but it was in a tree line like this. I'll show a little clip here if I could find one of when I was there. Anyways, there was a tank duel. So there was a Ukrainian tank versus a Russian tank over our trench. And they were nowhere near this close to our trench. It was probably like 5 times this distance, way out over here, right? Over here, the Ukrainian tank, and on the other side, the Russian tank. But when they would fire, their rounds would rip through the trees above us in when we were in our positions here. And it was one of the most intense things ever, right? But now I look at how close these tanks are, like here and okay. I need to get better with this. Here, dude, I would actually pee my pants if tanks were that close to my position. These tanks that were fighting over us were probably like this. We're probably like way out here, shooting at each other across. And it was scary as hell. This close, this many tanks shooting at your position or even through your position. Nah, man. That's a no for me, dog.
to the raw combat footage with map animations of the battlefield to help show the kind of tactics and strategies that Ukrainian soldiers are deploying in order to better understand modern warfare. I'm Chris Cappy, former infantryman and war correspondent. Fire around at the subscribe button to get 3 rundowns each week. At dawn, Russian forces start their assault. Columns of heavy armored vehicles that are carrying large number of enemy infantry all advance simultaneously toward one location. Because they don't have much night vision, they choose this early morning hour to assault. You can see the Russian troops are pouring in, converging on the positions of the Ukrainian soldiers. The defenders include the 110th Mechanized Brigade, the separate Presidential Brigade, and the 47th themselves. The lead Russian tank has a plow fitted to the front of the vehicle, and it's paving a safe path through the minefield so that the rest of the Russian vehicles can follow on. You can see tracer rounds from the Russian vehicles' autocannon shells and giant explosions going off, showing just how much heavy firepower is getting thrown at that Ukrainian trench line in the tree line that you see there. The Russian troops are laying down this fire to try to cover their advance. Ukrainian troops fire back. You can see an anti-tank guided munition fly by the Russian column there. But that missile misses its target, and we'll see what the Ukrainians do next turns Russia's breakthrough into a deadly trap. Doing the research for these videos, as you can imagine, involves sifting through just a metric ton of biased sources, and that's why my team and I use Ground News. I love that Ground News gives me the key objective facts right up front, and with my Vantage plan, it tells me that the majority, 55% of the 36 sources on this story are all right-leaning, which means the left might have totally missed this story. It automatically identifies which sources are high in factuality so that I avoid fake news.
This is such a every time he brings up this app or this website, Ground News. This is I talk about this, how important it is to that a website specifies the biases of different news stations, because so many people out there, I will say uneducated, and I also say much older people, have been watching the same news station forever and have no idea that it is completely biased and changing narratives to change the way that they think, right? This is really cool. Anyways,
it has awesome tools like this one that tells me which of these sources are owned by private equity so that I can avoid it because they're known for pushing profits over journalism. But my favorite thing is the Ground News app on my phone because it's the first thing that I open up in the morning with my coffee, and it's the last thing that I look out before I crash out for the night. This is the one place that you can go to actually have a homepage that shows you stories on both sides, the left and the right. I grew up like a lot of you guys with mainstream media talking heads just yelling at us, telling us what to think, which is why I'm excited to share an objective source with you. And we're offering you guys 40% off the same Vantage plan that my whole team uses here with our research. Just click my link in the description of the video down below, or go to groundnews.com/Cappy, or scan the QR code up here. If you want a better understanding of the world, just give Ground News a shot. Then the Ukrainians launch cluster munitions that pepper the Russian advance but don't score any knockout blows, because those munitions are best for taking out infantry. There are multiple explosions 50 to 100 meters away from the Russian targets. The scale of this attack is just incredible. As the Russians breach the first defensive line, the infantry dismount here to try to clear the trench network. The Ukrainian 47th Infantry fall back and create local strongpoints to block the Russian infantry. These trenches are the main defense against the assault. We can see the Ukrainian surveillance drone gets a bird's eye view of the battlefield, because at the same time, the Russians are hitting multiple positions throughout the sector. It's up to the 47th Brigade to hold their ground as long as they can, just until reinforcements can arrive, which is what the Ukrainian commanders are doing right now. As soon as they identify a massive attack is coming, they start calling for their reinforcements. According to a Ukrainian soldier who fought in this battle and was interviewed, the Russians had already tried to break through here for weeks at this point. They were exhausted from the fighting. We can see a Russian soldier riding on top of a BTR here, firing their rifle off wildly from the rooftop of the vehicle in one of the most strange tactics I've seen yet. The Ukrainians use precise artillery support and FPV drones to start knocking out several enemy vehicles in a huge explosion. We see the husks of the burnt out Russian tanks from previous assaults. But this Ukrainian squad is still basically alone and outnumbered out there. They engage the Russian infantry in close quarters fighting. You can see the infantry in the trench here have blue tape all over their uniforms to prevent friendly fire. Now, these Ukrainian soldiers that are going to be defending this trench are going to be putting up an insane fight. We see the Russians from the drone footage.
You guys remember when we watched the full footage of this, of that unit right there for the 47th? Insane, dude. Their commander chill the whole time. He even gets wounded. They have a female combat medic who at one point had to pick up her rifle and fight Russians. I mean, was a really cool battle.
They're clearly marked in red
Impressive.
tape in a nearby trench about 50 meters from them. They are so close that the Ukrainians can hear the enemy shouting, a very unnerving experience. This gives one Ukrainian soldier an idea though. If you can hear the enemy talking, you can probably throw something at the enemy then, if they're that close. He winds up and throws a fragmentation grenade. Throwing a baseball is easy, but throwing a grenade while in full battle gear with a rifle slung and body armor makes it much more difficult. Talk about a good throwing arm though. That grenade was dead on. Takes out 2 Russian soldiers. We can't show the footage here of the dead, but this is a recreation of what happened. But the explosion only briefly held the Russian assault at bay. The Russians respond with grenades of their own, and the Ukrainian defenders just barely managed to get away from the blast in time. We see a bird's eye surveillance view here that we're going to slow down to show a lay of the land of this assault. Notice right there, you can see all the Russian armored vehicles are bunched up and damaged at that one localized point. Why aren't they damaged throughout the whole road? Why is it just focused there? You see about 8 knocked out, damaged Russian vehicles are stuck right there where the tree line is. And this is because that's what's called a kill zone. It's the point at which Ukrainian defenders maximize their layered effects. Landmines, anti-tank munitions, artillery, FPV drones, they're all zeroed in for right here. Drone operators have this location marked on their GPS beforehand. Machine gunners are zeroed in for this distance. Bradley gunners also have this marked off. This is why often assaults don't run into resistance until they run into basically a brick wall. Despite all this, the pressure from the attack is threatening to break through the line. They've already been in several hours of fighting at this point. They're exhausted. That's when the unit's M2 Bradleys arrived to reinforce the fight. The 47th Separate Mechanized Brigade was one of the first Ukrainian units to receive this Western armored vehicles, including the American-made Bradleys that you see here. An M2 Bradley can't take a direct hit from a tank, but the infantry in that trench that are holding out, they need whatever support they can get right now. So the Bradleys arrive with more infantry reinforcements. They drop ramp and outpours fresh soldiers with ammunition, food, and RPGs. They quickly enter the trenches and start moving up to the isolated squad. This is how defending a position when outnumbered works. Your entire line is spread thin, but when assault is pinpointed, you rush in your reserve forces from the rear to plug the gaps. You saw it was only about 1 squad of Ukrainian infantry that were holding out against an entire Russian armored column. While the friendly Ukrainian infantry advance, the Bradley opens up with covering fire from their 25mm chain guns. As bullets snap overhead, the squad starts formulating a plan to retake the positions that they had abandoned earlier in the day. The squad's best grenadier thins out the Russians occupying those positions with some explosives. Who needs bomber drones when you have this guy? According to a Ukrainian soldier who fought in this battle, 2 Russian battalions have been dedicated to this fight. You can see them here driving to reposition for the fight. What's going on here? Why are they doing that? Why are they changing direction and heading in opposite directions here? It's so they can attack from a new direction. That's why they appear to be going in opposite ways. They found too much resistance in one way, so they're trying to attack from a different route where they hope there will be less Ukrainian resistance. Just as the Ukrainian reinforcements are arriving, the Russians are moving their own armored support into the position. The Russian commanders have caught wind of the Ukrainian Bradley deployment, and they're out for blood. Taking out American vehicles right as they show up on the battlefield would be a huge propaganda win for Russia, on top of a tactical success. The Russian armor is now only 2 kilometers from their position, heading in fast. You can see the smoke trails from this T-72 as it fires while on the move. The covering fire encourages some nearby Russian infantry to move up and start shooting at the Bradley with their machine guns. According to a Ukrainian Bradley commander, the Russians didn't know that their small arms couldn't penetrate a Bradley, so the bullets just ricochet off the armor, and the vehicle advances on the exposed enemy. The Bradleys aren't helpless, they open up with their tow missiles and 25mm cannons. But it was just a distraction. An enemy RPG gunner lands a direct hit on the Bradley's side, right next to the driver's position. Amazingly though, the Bradley shrugs off the hit. The reinforced Bradley reactive armor tiles, affectionately called BRAT, worked their magic and repelled the shape-charged warhead. Wow. All the RPG managed to do was make the Bradley kinda angry, and so it continues to chew the enemy infantry up with its rapid-fire main gun. A Russian T-72 hits a mine, immobilizing it right in front of the trench network. The tank looks like it had a mine plow fitted to it, but the crew chose not to deploy it, likely because they wanted to be more mobile and be able to quickly maneuver the tank instead of dragging the plow through dirt. But it was a mistake which cost them dearly. We can see Russian armor burning while the tank crew ditches their immobilized vehicle and retreats. Now, the Ukrainian 47th brings their heaviest armor to the fight. The German-made Leopard 2A6 tank enters the chat and immediately makes their presence known, blasting Russian armor apart with 120mm shells. You can see the shockwave from the explosion of the Russian tank ripple across the field in slow motion, going over 100 meters distance, showing the insane force involved here.
That's nuts.
Multiple tanks detonate into massive fireballs. But the defenders are not out of the woods. It's about to get even tougher. Russia seems to have an endless supply of metal and men to throw into this position. Ukrainian surveillance drones spot them moving more armored columns into the position to attack this tree line. While the tank battle rages literally over their heads, the forward infantry squad are fighting hard through the trenches. You can tell that they've been in the thick of it for a while, the way they're just throwing RPG rounds around casually on the ground like it's no big deal. One soldier takes aim with their anti-tank weapons. He exposes himself to take a shot at the tank. It's a direct hit. One infantryman knocks out a multi-million-dollar piece of machinery with some bravery and marksmanship. So the Ukrainians manage to hit that tank with the RPG, but they're forced back by heavy fire because that puts a red flag right on their position, draws all the fire on them. A massive wave of Russian reinforcements come. Russian infantry start pouring toward the trench line. They're storming in from all directions at this point. The Russians use a T-72 equipped with reinforced relic armor package to plow through the trees and reduce the available cover for the Ukrainian side. They're trying to get through that kill zone. As effective as the Bradleys and Leopards have been in the fight so far, there aren't enough of them. The Ukrainian 47th UAV Strike Company steps up to the plate with swarms of FPV drones. The drones slam into Russian positions. It's so brutal, we can't show the footage, but suffice it to say, multiple Russian infantry positions are taken out with these drones. It's one of the earlier examples in the war of this tactic being used to stop massive assaults. Despite heavy jamming from the Russian side, the drones managed to land hits on key enemy vehicles and infantry positions. Russian soldiers stand near their vehicles looking up at the sky, trying to hide. Some of the hits we can show on the armored vehicles and equipment. It's a devastating onslaught, and it represents one of the last weapons in their tool belt, one of their closest in systems to deploy in the last line before falling back. Whenever possible, the drone operators target either enemy tanks or transports with extra antennas that might be command vehicles. The vehicles trying to even make it to the kill zone now are starting to get tagged either enemy tanks.
You could see the electronic warfare systems on this tank worked when this FPV cuts out.
Or transports.
Right there. That's what it looks like when EW is working.
With extra antenna.
But that's also why FPV pilots are trained to they're trained for this. So they're trained to, on their approach to strike a target, to basically line it up and expect that they're going to lose connection when they get within that range of the EW, and so they're taught to line it up in a specific way so that when they lose connection, the drone will still fall on its target.
As that might be command vehicles.
Like that.
The vehicles trying to even make it to the kill zone now are starting to get tagged by drones. With the Russian tanks busy dodging drones, the M2 Bradleys get more aggressive. They start pouring chain gun fire down on the enemy. This Russian tank fires off a shell only to get nailed by an FPV drone in return. The ammo instantly explodes, sending a column of fire into the air and blocking the BTR transport behind. Explodes, nailed by an FPV.
This is when they were the Russian tanks were still keeping their fuel reserves on the rear of the turret.
This Russian tank
right here, right? So it's facing this way, and on the rear of the turret, they've got tanks of fuel. And this FPV team clearly knows that.
Fires off a shell only to get nailed by an FPV drone in return. The ammo instantly explodes, sending a column of fire into the air and blocking the BTR transport behind it. The BTR doesn't make it much further and gets absolutely evaporated by what looks like a shot from one of the Leopard 2s. Multiple Russian armored vehicles are attempting to make it through the open fields instead of using the roads, because it seems like a safe option. But the Ukrainian M2 Bradleys, the drones, the artillery all make that a difficult challenge to achieve a breakthrough on. Meanwhile, the forward infantry have regrouped at their strong point. The armored fight is happening, while on the lower level, a massive trench battle with infantry is also taking place at the same time. A huge shell whizzes overhead the trench, possibly from the enemy tank looking in their direction. Determined to not get pinned down, the Ukrainian squad starts advancing in small groups to probe the trenches ahead. The infantry maneuver.
The emotional and just mental and physical exhaustion of, realizing, we are one of the last infantry units on in this position, and we're getting pushed by an entire Russian column, right? So you're dealing with that mentally. Like, okay, you're basically coming to terms with the fact these are your last minutes on Earth. And then all of a sudden, you've got all these reinforcements and stuff, and now you're starting to win the tide of this. So now your emotions are back up. You're like, I might actually survive to see, another day. And now you're going, and now the fear's coming back in, because now you're getting orders to go retake those positions that the Russians are now in. So it's like this gnarly emotional roller coaster, and it's exhausting, dude. I've never been in in a position that was attacked like this hard, but I have been in positions that we were getting radioed in, like, hey, you've got this unit coming, there's this unit on their way to your position, get ready. And it's like it's a gnarly feeling, dude. You're like, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's dread. The feeling is dread, knowing that there are people on their way to come kill you right now unless you kill them first.
And communicate through the trench system, constantly putting down, suppressing fire, small arms on the enemy. They push up through the trench network to close with and destroy.
This so many people called this clip out when we saw it on the original video, and I didn't even notice it.
The enemy. They push up through the trench network to close with and destroy.
It's an airsoft gun. I didn't even notice that in the first video, but you guys did. One thing that is pretty common here in Ukraine is using airsoft guns for training in trenches, so you can actually fight each other in trenches without obviously hurting each other. And so this probably is a real Ukrainian training video, but this obviously wasn't a video of the defense of Avdiivka, yeah.
Roy, one Ukrainian soldier who was interviewed about the battle, later said that they move up in small groups because that's how they work most efficiently inside the trenches. They calculated that they could dislodge the enemy, and so they try to push up from there. The squad hopes that the covering fire from the M2 Bradleys outside their position has kept the enemy infantry suppressed and out of the trenches. The giant explosive shells hammering the enemy positions creates a psychological effect, a shock effect, that can help them even though they're far outnumbered. But Ukrainians don't realize yet that they're walking into almost 2 full squads of Russian soldiers. The team's forward scout, who's named Al-Qaeda, spots a cluster of enemy troops and asks for a grenade. They start rummaging through assault packs. Everyone's searching for a grenade that they might have hidden away or forgotten about in their backpack, as one does. Al-Qaeda moves up to the most forward point in the trench, and it's a tense moment where he is at his most vulnerable. So he throws the grenade, and the grenade nails some exposed enemy infantry. But there's a penalty in return. The aggressive maneuver has attracted the attention of more Russian infantry. They push on Al-Qaeda's trench and throw grenades of their own. Several Ukrainian troops get injured in the exchange. One of the team members takes a hit just as he's returning to the strong point.
That's the team leader. And Al-Qaeda, the one that he was just talking about that threw that grenade, got rinsed, dude. He got shot up pretty bad right after he threw that grenade. They get him out and they save him, but during this time right here when they're still holding out, Al-Qaeda's like, you guys got to go and leave me. Like, you guys got to leave. When the evacuation vehicles come, leave me a machine gun, and I'll stay here. And the team leader, this guy, and the medic, whose camera that we're on currently, were like, dude, shut up. We're not leaving you. Don't ever say that again. But yeah, this commander takes shrapnel right under his arm. That's a dangerous place.
The shot slipped past his body armor and hit just below his right armpit. The team gets to work treating the gunshot wound, but the team took a lot of casualties in the last salvo. Al-Qaeda seems to have suffered the worst, exposed out front as he was. The tourniquet on his leg indicates he has some pretty serious bleeding. The squad needs to clear him and other wounded out of the position, both for proper treatment and to avoid tripping over them during the rest of the fight. They radio for a medevac to get them to safety, but it's going to be a rough evacuation to get the wounded from this frontline trench. As explosions go off all around them, the team debates what to do next. Al-Qaeda offers to hold the position while the rest of the team
I guess I could have just shut up and let the video play out.
Moves out, but they're still surrounded by tanks, and there's nowhere to go. Over the radio, a plan to evacuate the wounded starts to take shape. The other infantry secure a side trench, while command uses an overhead drone to lead the Bradleys to the evac site. It's a gamble, since the enemy tanks are still out there, but it's the best chance they've got. Al-Qaeda's in a ton of pain, especially trying to walk with a tourniquet secured around his thigh. You can see him shaking from all of it, but he has to push through the agony and move if he's going to get to the Bradleys in time. He seems to resign himself to his fate and offers again to stay put and hide while the rest of the team moves out to safety. We can't see it, but I bet the grenade blast also rattled his skull around and he's dealing with a TBI, in addition to the injuries we can see. The squad do not want to leave a man behind, so they give Al-Qaeda smoke to help him rest and calm down his nerves, which is one of the kindest things you can do for an infantryman out in the field. While the M2 Bradleys get into position, they keep talking to him and encourage him to give it one last push. The friendly Leopard tanks lay down smoke grenades, covering at least one angle of the medevac from enemy fire. Al-Qaeda still can't stand on his injured leg, but dragging him by the vest seems to be working. Remember, he hasn't had a drop of painkillers, and he's just raw-dogging this entire experience.
Crazy.
The Bradleys and Leopards work together, maneuvering to minimize exposure to the enemy Russian tanks that are still out there. Finally, they reach the evacuation point, and the squad rushes out of the trenches to load the wounded. It's a tense moment as the infantry are fully exposed while running to the vehicles. Against all odds, though, the Ukrainian squad manages to get the wounded, including Al-Qaeda, into the Bradley. With the wounded loaded up, the Bradley rushes back toward home base. Al-Qaeda really strained himself in the last push, and he isn't doing well, so he needs immediate medical attention. While the team transfers him from the Bradley to a waiting ambulance, the main battle tank Leopard are put back on the prowl. The Leopards fire armor-piercing sabot shells, punching right through the frontal armor of the enemy T-72s. With their armor support reduced to smoking wrecks, the Russian infantry get relentlessly pounded by 120mm high-explosive shells. As the sun starts to set, there's practically nothing left to the massive assault that threatened the 47th defensive line. A smoldering fire finally reaches this T-72's fuel tank, blowing the hole open. before spreading to the ammo and truly finishing it off. A lot of these wrecks still have full ammo loads inside, making for some truly spectacular fireworks when they go off. The Russians threw just about everything they had at this position, and eventually they did take the town of Avdiivka, but the insane defense from the 47th Mechanized Brigade and their neighboring units made the Russians pay for every inch of land they took. It was one of the bloodiest battles of the war so far for the Russian military. The Western-made M2 Bradleys and Leopard 2 armored vehicles made a huge difference in the fight. While the Bradleys delivered and evacuated infantry close to the front line, the Leopard 2s were able to neutralize enemy tanks at long range. These vehicles had only just made their combat debut in Ukraine a few months earlier, so their crews were still relatively green. They were learning quickly, though, how to move with confidence once they realized what their vehicles could do and putting effective fire on the enemy. If it weren't for their timely arrival, the defenders from the forward trench might never have made it out alive. And that's really what this battle comes down to, I think. Drones, artillery, Bradley, and Leopard tanks inflicted enormous damage, but none of them could hold the trench by themselves.
Yeah.
It was a handful of exhausted infantrymen refusing to give up in a filthy trench on the ground long enough for all that firepower to really matter. Russia would eventually capture Avdiivka, but battles like this show why taking territory is still brutally difficult. At the very end of the kill chain, somebody still has to physically stand there and refuse to move. If you like this combat rundown, we have a whole...
So good, man. Please check Happy's channel out if you haven't already. That's one thing I wanted to mention, and he touched on it right at the end there, but it's how impressive it is how quickly reinforcements were able to show up and plug those holes. And one of the reasons it's so impressive is because of how large the front line is here in Ukraine. It's massive, massive front line. It's so spread out, right? And obviously there's hot points, and commanders know to keep certain QRF, quick response forces, or quick reaction forces near certain hot points. But still, being able to that effectively fill holes, then deploy armor, then deploy casualty evacuation teams, and then evacuate the wounded. I mean, dude, each one of those is a massive task on its own, and they just nailed each one of them. But what's sad to see now is none of this is a thing anymore. Drones make it impossible. So you can't, when enemy infantry is pushing a Ukrainian position, you can't just dispatch Bradleys or Leopards or, T-80 repurposed Soviet-style tanks, because drones blow them up. So you have to do kind of like this counter drone situation and then send a couple guys at a time to try to reinforce a position. It's just completely changed, but such a cool video, man. Battle of Avdiivka. It's one of the coolest videos that we've ever reacted to, was that original footage of the Avdiivka fight, and this is a great breakdown of it. You guys, I love you. Please like, share, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.